from the investors' perspective. We heard a lot from the founders, and I'm sure a lot of us want to hear from the female investors we have here, or females that are representing a number of investors. Um, we will start by introducing Ifeoma Uddoh. Welcome. Ifeoma is the founder of Shecluded. Please give her a round of applause. Okay. Moving forward, I'll be introducing Tosin Faniro-Dada. She is the head of Lagos Innovates at the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. A round of applause, please. Welcome, Tosin. Last but not the least, Ruby Nkma. Did I get your name wrong? Nickmar. So sorry. She is the principal at Greenhouse Capital. So we're going to start with Ifeoma. Please, kindly tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what has been the driving force that has propelled you to where you are right now.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Ifeoma Uddoh. I started out with a degree in mathematics, and when I finished school, my mom told me that there's this company that her friend was always talking about, that everybody there had Jeep, and that it was a good company, it was a multinational company. And I said, what's the name? She said PwC. And I actually thought it sounded like Pfizer. So I went to PwC and, I saw the Jeep in front and I said, yeah, this looks like where I want to work. And I went in and I did the test and I asked them, what are you guys into? They say audit, consulting, and tax. I was like, wow, because I went to a school of engineering. I studied industrial maths because you were supposed to choose between industrial maths or computer science, and we didn't have any computer lab, so I went for maths. So when I got there and I say audit consultant, I've never heard all those terms before, but I said, okay, let me sit for the exam, and I sat for the exam and I passed it. So that's how I got into PwC. And when I was there, I came to work one day and I saw a colleague and she said, oh, I got a full scholarship for London Business School. And I said, wow, they give people full scholarship abroad? And she said yes. And I said, okay. And I applied to Lancaster University and I did this, application for a scholarship. And I got a scholarship to study management science and operations research. So I went to the UK. When I finished my master's, I came back. Around that time, that was when tech was in. I mean, Jason Njoku just got funding for Iroko TV, and he was looking for a head of strategy and analytics. So I went there. I did head of strategy and analytics for a while. Then there was a company that was coming back from the US, and they said they were looking for a country manager. I talked to the CEO. He went to University of Chicago, the whole American fashion. I fell for the company. I went there. I was there for 3 years. I finished, and when I was there, we raised money, all the whole stuff about raising money. And we finished, and one day I got a call from somebody that said they were looking for somebody to run a seed investment company, a technology seed investment company. And I said, fantastic view. I mean, I've been on the other side to receive finance. Let me be on this side to give money. So I went there. I was there for 4 years when, as the head of Saswe. And when we were there, we had an idea for a platform to buy and sell businesses. And I said, yeah, it was a nice idea. And my boss said, come up with it, develop the company. So we came up with that company. I came up with that company. And eventually we just sold it last year to an investment bank. And while I was there, I kept coming to panels like this, and I was hearing guys pitch for money. And I was like, where are all the women? I said, I bet they're not in tech. They will be in some other sectors. So I went to Histogram. Then I heard Histogram was like the thing. I went there, I signed up, and I was looking at all these women doing amazing things online. And I sent them inbox. I said, hi, I like what you're doing. I would like to put in money for equity. And they liked the money part. And when they say equity, I said, what's equity? I said, I will own part of your business. And they said, no, I don't want that. And I said, what? I didn't think that was going to be a problem. I felt that with my consulting background and small money, I could take them up. And I stepped back and said, you know what? I think that the best thing to do is to give them loans. So that's how I started doing Shecluded when I was still working. I started contacting a number of women that I think that with more money, that they could do more. And I started giving them small money. And I've seen some of them change from, they used to work at the toll gates, earning 50,000, grumpy, and they now have stores. And, I've seen them blossom before my eyes. And I felt, I think I want to do this for a lifetime. So I quit my job in December, and I started doing Shecluded this year. So, yes, that's the background. So Shecluded is a credit company basically targeted at women. Our focus is growth loans. We said growth loans so that if you want loans, you can go to other companies. But if you want to be accountable for your growth, if you want us to be your credit partner, yes, that's what we do, basically.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Tosin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Isioma and team. My name is Tosin, like you said. I studied accounting at the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth. I did my master's in accounting as well from Boston College. And like Ifeoma, I started my career at PwC in Boston. I did that for 3 years, and my parents were like, don't you think it's time for you to move back home? And I was like, no. And then my dad was like, when I was your age, when I was this your age, I moved back. So I think it's time for you to move back. Anyway, I moved back to Nigeria, and I started my career in ARM, where I did investment management, and I was on the hospitality and retail team, where we were building hotels and investing in them. I did that for 3 years, and I got tired. So I have a 3-year thing. I worked at PwC for 3 years, and then I moved back to Nigeria. Then I worked at ARM for 3 years, and I thought it was time for a change. So I moved to Skybank. I worked at Skybank for 2 years and 9 months, where I was in the corporate banking division, in the upstream transaction team, giving loans to upstream clients. I did that for 2 years and 9 months, like I said, and I thought I was going to move to Abuja and work for Sigma Pensions. So at the time, Actis had just bought Sigma Pensions, and the new MD that Actis was bringing in wanted to hire me. So I actually quit Skybank to move to Abuja and work for Sigma Pensions. Now, I asked for some time off, so I have this thing where I would ask for 3 months off to rest and get ready for my new job. Anyway, I asked for some time off, and while I was waiting and enjoying myself, I got a call from LSETF to come for an interview. And at first, I was like, did I apply? And they were like, yes, you did, 9 months ago. I was like, really? So I remembered that a friend of mine had told me about this new government initiative, and I had said no at first because I said government can never afford me. But I was really frustrated at work one day, and I was so pissed off, mind my language, and I called her and I was like, I'm sending you my resume now, send it to them. So apparently she did, and I didn't even know. So anyway, I got a call to come for an interview in Ikoyi. I thought it was a scam because I was like, Alausa is Ikeja. Why am I coming to Ikoyi? Anyway, so I was like, what time is this meeting? And they said, I think it was at 1 o'clock. I was like, okay, fine. That's broad daylight. Nothing can happen to me. So I went to the meeting. I had the first interview, and I met with the consultant. And he told me about this plan, LSETF. It's a 25 billion naira fund by the Ambode administration. It's going to support MSMEs. It's going to support startups. It's going to train people and place people in jobs. And I was like, okay, this sounds amazing, but do you guys actually have the money? And then he said he would give me more information when I scale through. So anyway, the second interview, I met my old boss, Akinoyebode. I don't know if people are familiar with him here, but he's pretty amazing. And he pretty much sold the dream to me. And he was pretty much like, we're going to change Lagos. I was like, really? And he was like, yes, we have government backing. We're going to change Lagos. My first question to him was, do you have the money? And he said, yes. Not all of it, but he had some of it. So I said, okay, fine. I'm willing to be part of this team that will change Lagos. And I'm very happy to say that I am so proud of the work that the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund is doing. Since inception in October 2016, we have supported 11,500 businesses with over 7 billion naira. We've pretty much given the money back to the people. So far, we've been funded with 9.5 billion naira from the Lagos State government. I think it's going to go to about 10 point something billion before the end of this year. And out of that money, 7 billion has gone back to businesses. And beyond that, we also have an employability program where we've trained 4,500 people and placed 2,200 of them in jobs. So for us, it's not just training for training's sake. It's actually training to place people in jobs. Now, with Lagos Innovates, which I manage, we've supported 100 startups with access to workspaces through our Workspace Voucher program. We've recently launched a talent development program in partnership with Honeywell Group, where we're training people and placing them in jobs. We closed with over 200 applications, and we hope to start the first cohort next month with about 55 people that will be trained through a student loan program. We also sponsor events like Lagos Startup Week, and we sponsor events that support collaboration, events that support networking, and knowledge sharing. So in a nutshell, my experience at LSETF has been pretty amazing, and it's nice to have a young team where people feel closer to the government. Really, if you want an intervention, if you need a meeting for your business with, for example, the Ministry of Transportation, if you shoot us an email, we will set up that meeting for you. We would actually midwife the process for you to ensure that whatever it is that you're trying to get from the ministry, we know that we've tried all our best to ensure that, things happen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ruby?
I think this is on. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm Ruby from Greenhouse Capital. I'm the principal there. My background, the accent is Australian, but my background, born and bred everywhere in a weird way. I finished high school in Shanghai. We lived in India and worked in India for some time, ended up in the US somehow, and I ended up studying finance and behavioral economics. So a little bit of a different background. And then I ended up working across the US, predominantly in strategy consulting, very focused on fintech and financial services, and also service design and innovation. And then I ended up moving, given my background of moving around so frequently, I started getting a bit itchy and caught the bug and decided actually I might move across the pond over to London. I've been in London for about a year and a half before I started figuring out it was time for another move. And I was looking to pivot my career out of sort of consulting and really focused on the investment side, or finding the intersection between technology and fintech or financial services, and also development or working within sort of frontier markets. Mostly because I was so familiar with living in India and China that I wanted to try and move back into that space. And so I ended up contacting, again, kind of harping on about how important network is. I sort of contacted literally everybody I knew, and I figured everyone I knew would probably know one or two other people. And they sort of put me in touch, and I sort of said, okay, let me have conversations with people that are doing some kind of work that aligns to where I want to be. And I ended up getting ping-ponged across the continent. So got in touch with someone in Kenya, and they said, we're not sure if we're doing what you want to do, but maybe you can contact this person and this person and this person. And then I ended up being put in touch with one of the CEO and co-founders of the company that I currently work for, which is called Venture Garden Group, effectively our parent company and a venture builder here in Lagos. And I was super, super inspired by what they were doing, and they've been around for about 10 years here on the continent. They started out in payments and fintech and then moved into working in educational technology and building tech solutions for health, education, aviation, and multiple different industries. They had a huge, audacious kind of vision of what they want to do with the company, but also the impact that they want to drive out of the continent. And I ended up having a scheduled 30-minute call with them. This was earlier this year. And that half-hour call ended up about an hour and a half, and we were just kind of bouncing ideas back and forth, and it was a hugely passionate discussion. And at the end of that conversation, Bumi, the CEO, ended up saying, well, honestly, Ruby, I can tell you all of this great stuff, but you're never going to know unless you give it a shot. So why don't you move to Lagos? And I thought, that's not what I was going for initially. I've never been. I don't know what it's like. And somehow, a month and a half later, I landed in Lagos, which is surprising because the visa process is not that easy, but it worked. And so I've been here effectively running the investment arm of VGG, which has invested in about 20 companies over the last 3 to 4 years. All early stage companies, again, started off in fintech, but now sort of expanded into healthcare, also mobility, educational technology. And I guess the key differentiator about Greenhouse Capital is really that we're not just capital injectors. And I think that's a really big distinction, and I think that's a really important distinction in this market. So focusing on, not just providing capital and sort of stability from a financial perspective to help these companies grow, but also providing the advisory, providing the network, providing advice from our parent company. As operators in the market, we also understand how to scale companies. And so it was important to be able to leverage some of the knowledge and the experts within that space and bring them over to help some of the companies that we've invested in as well. That's pretty much me.
Thank you so much. So apart from the fact that, can you all hear me? Apart from the fact that the three of you are, of course, women, and you represent different, or you are investors, quote unquote. I know that, Ruby, you have this initiative, the Greenhouse Lab, and Tosin with Lagos Innovates, Shecluded. Are there specific things you look out for in businesses, before you invest, things that attract you, things that make you want to invest in a business? Because, apart from everyone hearing stories from founders and knowing their growth process, their journey, and the obstacles they faced and all of that, the reason we have all of you here is because you're, I wouldn't want to use the word fighting, but trying to create that space that is conducive for women to actually launch their businesses and grow their businesses. What are the factors or the things you look out for in businesses?
Yeah.
Ruby.
So I think there are a couple of things, actually. I think first and foremost is just the ability to be adaptable and flexible. I think in these types of environments, you are thrown so many obstacles, as you'd mentioned. Things don't always go to plan, and a lot of the time, what you think is going to plan sometimes yields 3 other opportunities, right? And so just being cognizant and open and adaptable to be able to shift very quickly is really important. And I think the second thing is having a lot of humility as well. So there's a lot to learn from a lot of people who are doing things in this space, and also people who are not necessarily startup founders, for example, but people who are working at the enterprise level, working in large corporations, working in regulation, who are able to help you navigate and learn, right? So you may not have all of the skill sets today, but that's not to say that you don't have access to the resources to help you get those skill sets and help you scale up a team. You know, you don't need to know everything within your business. You need to be surrounded by people who can help you do that. And I think just being having humility and being sort of craving for knowledge and then being adaptable is kind of the three key things.
Tosin?
Okay, so for us, it's a bit different because we actually do not invest in startups. What we do is provide an enabling environment for these startups. So we facilitate access to infrastructure, access to talent. We facilitate access to capital by introducing them to investors. So because we have a pipeline, a lot of investors reach out to us with the sectors that they're interested in and the scope and the types of businesses that they want to invest in. And then we just go through our database of like over 100 startups and recommend startups to them. But what I would say is, with some of our programs, our workspace voucher program, for example, I'm never going to have a face-to-face meeting with you. I'm going to just rely on the application that you submit. So it is very important that you articulate your business very well in the application form. I have seen very poor application forms that even if the idea sounds fantastic, the fact that you cannot put it on paper properly, it will get thrown out. Because you have to bear in mind that we're getting like 400, 500 applications. So we don't have time to sit down and call you for an interview where you can properly articulate your business to us. So whatever you put on paper must be solid. But I'll also talk about the loan program. So our loan program is different from our tech startup program. With the loan program, we provide funding to micro, small, and medium businesses up to 5 million naira at 5% per annum, 5% interest rate per annum. Now, with the loan program, we do request for interviews when you're applying, and we see that a lot of entrepreneurs, their businesses are not properly structured. Most times we're looking at bank statements, and we're seeing a lot of personal transactions. Your business is not registered. There's no corporate governance. Your team is not credible. All these are red flags. So even if you have a good reason to borrow the funding, the truth is we probably wouldn't give it to you if you don't have the right structure, you don't have the right corporate governance, or you're not even registered, or we see a lot of personal transactions in your company account. So all these things might not be important to you today if you think that you're small, but the truth is, in the long run, if you're looking to investors like Ruby, your books must make sense. It's never too late for you to start thinking about a board. It's never too late for you to start thinking about, audited accounts. Even if you cannot afford an accountant now, there's so many softwares in the market that can help you navigate that, and you can do it yourself. So for me, I would say structure is one, corporate governance is two.
Thank you.
So for us, Shecluded, I think that one thing so there's always been a history and a research of why women don't get loans, and one of a key thing that keeps coming up is structure. I mean, let's face it. I mean, most women play in MSME, and they're still trying to figure it out, trying to figure out the team, trying to survive, and somebody's saying structure, and structure sometimes takes time. So basically, most women we work with, we expect that sometimes they come with their personal accounts being their business account. So, we try to tell them that with time, we expect this to progress, especially if you are, we have a cap of 2.5 million. And after that, our intention is to give you enough credit history to be able to deal with any bank. Think about it. One of the key reasons why SMEs don't get loans is that nobody have their record to be able to say this person is bankable, this person is lendable. But because we are focused on women and because it's like a community, we can take that risk on you. And I've seen a lot of times they all pay back. They manage to pay back because they know that tomorrow they will all come back. So while we're doing that, our rules are a bit relaxed, sort of. So we take that. But a key thing that I notice is that we ask people, how much have you invested in your business? So if we meet you, for example, and you don't have inventory, and you don't have staff, and you don't have anything, and you say, I need XXX amount, it actually rings a red flag. Or if I look at what comes in every month, and it's not steady or it's not predictable what you're accessing. So for us, because we know the circumstances of why many women don't get access to credit, we are relaxed on that, and we are more focused on the individual. So we've had a situation. I know that I was talking to one tech company, a female tech company, and I was looking at her books, and I said, I don't think you qualify for this loan, and I think that you should be sort of like a charity. Have you sort of getting people to put in money as CSR? And she was upset. She said, I told you there's a business in this. And just hearing her confidently pitch her business and telling me I'm making case for why she exists made me give her that loan. And she's paying back, and she hasn't missed a quarter. I mean, for me, she reminded me of me. I know when I first started Shecluded, it was very, very somehow for me to meet guys that I used to work with, and they have known my portfolio over the years, and I tell them about Shecluded, and they said, oh, nice, you're going to win an award. I'm like, damn it, are you serious? This is a profitable business. This is the business I'm looking to take to Y Combinator, to scale, to be a fintech. And the only thing you can tell me is I'm going to win an award. He said, yes, now women, what else would you do apart from? So I started getting the subtle, because women is not really growth inclined, is going to be, very. So I mean, having people and having it all, I think a key thing, you are a very key factor in your access to credit or access to funding, and the way you are able to communicate and build a case for yourself. So yeah.
Thank you. So to add to that, for me, as a lawyer, I've had to do a lot of due diligence on companies, and you see that a lot of people take a lot of things for granted. It is so, so amazing. And, I don't know, under the law, there's something we say, ignorance is not an excuse, because at the end of the day, as an investor, you want to see return on investment. You want to see that this is a profitable business before you put in your money. So are we going to say that a lot of these things are a factor of people not knowing, or they're not educated, or they just don't see it as important, or I don't know. What would you put that under, really?
Okay, so I think awareness is key. And that's one of the reasons why, beyond just giving loans, we also do a lot of capacity building. So you actually have to teach people how to structure their business. And you have to teach them about their books, about taxes, accounting, and things like that. So I think more education, especially for women. I think a lot of women get comfortable. A lot of women don't think about scaling and getting bigger. And even with our loan program, I'll give you an example. We've seen so many instances where a woman's business can clearly afford a 5 million naira loan. This is 5 million for 3 years, 5% per annum. They can clearly afford it. But then you would see that the woman would apply for a 500,000 naira loan. And when you meet with her, when you have the interview and you tell her that, but madam, you can afford a 5 million naira loan. And she'll be like, no, I just want to start small. I don't want to take that risk. I'm afraid, what if I can't pay? What would happen? Blah, blah, blah. And then you see a man whose business can only afford a 500,000 naira loan, and he will apply for that 5 million, and he will give you 50 reasons why you should give him that 5 million naira loan. So you have to build women's confidence in themselves. We must, and you have to be deliberate about it. And that is why we've decided that, you know what, we can say that we have a 25 billion naira fund, and we expect 60% of our beneficiaries to be women. But the truth is, a lot of them are not applying. Even the ones that are applying are not applying for the right categories. So now we've said, you know what, we're going to have a women's fund. And this is why we launched the LSETF W Women's Fund in partnership with Access Bank. It's a 10 billion naira fund that is solely for women. So this way, we're hoping that more women would be encouraged to apply when they realize that this fund is just for you guys. This fund is going to provide access to finance for your businesses and also capacity building for the entrepreneurs as well.
Thank you. Ruby, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I think not just financial literacy, but generally being able to build up a skill set across how to build a business, how to grow it, how to scale it, understanding legal structures, understanding how to be able to read an investment term sheet, for example, right? And being able to read between the lines when it's all full of legalese. That kind of basic understanding is very, very necessary, and it's not something that everyone is expected to know from the very beginning. So part of Greenhouse Capital, we run a female-focused tech accelerator program. It actually kicks off next week. What we've done is we've tried to cater the program or build the program into a very immersive, very pragmatic, and very practical approach. It's not about a general accelerator that's going to teach you kind of all of these general skills. There's no sort of teacher-student kind of setup. It's very much catered to you're running a business in, let's say, the creative industry, or you're running a business in insurance technology. How does this apply? How does financial modeling apply to insurtech, right? How does marketing and communications, for example, that's not something that comes naturally to everyone either. So how do you build a marketing strategy directed towards insurance technology versus the creative industry versus, let's say, a beauty and beauty services marketplace, right? They're completely different, and whether it's B2B or B2C, there's a different approach. And I think also when you start thinking about teaching for structuring specifically, it's really around not just structuring and managing a business, not just creating a culture for your people that you're growing, and it's not just around structuring your pricing model, right? It's also, let's say, your vision is to expand into multiple different countries on the continent, right? And you're dealing with different regulation. You're dealing with various different entity structures that need to be put in place in order for you to be set up appropriately and in order for you to become investment ready, right? So ultimately, as an investor, our entire goal is to make sure that we have ROI. Now, how do we develop a quality pipeline? How do we develop quality startups that we can invest in? And it's by actually providing that sort of platform and learning platform that essentially says, they've now been vetted for 2 months through this program, or they've now been vetted by, let's say, a combination of the program plus, loans that have actually been given to them through due diligence done by, for example, any of these companies. That kind of puts a much stronger case forward for international investors, for angel investors or investors that are looking across sort of investing in Africa as a continent, not just a small investor based in Nigeria, right, who's willing to take on the risk. And I think on the flip side as well, there's an element of education on the investor side, right? So international investors, for example, are not that, they're still a little bit risk averse when it comes to investing on the continent. And I think being able to say that actually these companies have now gone through some kind of a program, or they've now got the vetting of multiple different companies, banks, etc., that then shaves off that layer of risk that they would associate with investing here, right? And that then obviously helps some of these startups access multiple different markets. And then obviously also local investors as well. what we find is the expectation of some investors that are, investing in startups is actually a very, very new asset class, right? It's a relatively kind of young space for H&Is or for even small VCs to be investing in. There's still a lot of different elements of due diligence that you need to do in addition on the continent than you would need to do, for example, overseas, that, just frameworks and things like that, risks are different, et cetera. And so again, being able to make sure that some of these people have a very, very standardized and very clear set of skills where they've been able to actually go through and build something for their particular company. So I think that's really, really important to do. And that obviously then also attracts more investment, more support. It also attracts corporations, for example, who would be now willing to say, we had MTN earlier today, who would then be willing to say, hey, this company is now ready to be plugged into our open API, right? They have built, grown, and scaled enough that we, as a large corporate, would trust in the fact that this company can now plug and play into our platforms, right? And so an access bank, for example, is not going to take something that's so early stage and doesn't have the right structure in place, doesn't have the right financials in place. It's too high of a risk for a company to do that.
Something just came to mind. So when you were talking, I just, remembered that there are actually a number of female-owned businesses here in Nigeria that are successful. But what does it take to go global? Because, a lot of people are actually, they feel limited, or would I say they limit themselves by just being successful within, let me say, Nigeria, without actually thinking, or without, I wouldn't want to say thinking or wanting to go global. What would it take to actually push themselves to break barriers, boundaries, and go global? Farmer?
Okay, so I was reading a publication on, I think an article about women, African women and entrepreneurship, where most of them, for some reason, they settle with lifestyle entrepreneurship as regards growth, and just trying to push a lot of people into growth entrepreneurship. And I started trying to work, you would think that with my experience, I would be like very bold, very confident, very sure of what I've done. I did the last startup and I sold it. And right now I'm doing this alone. But I'm still, so I think it starts from the way that women are brought up in this environment. I'm still like, wow, I know that. So the first time I reached out to Tosin, Money Africa, and she saw what I was doing and she liked it. And one day she called me up and said an investor wanted to meet with me, and we had dinner. And the next thing she's like, "Oh, I would like to put in $125,000," and I said, "Oh, that's nice," and everything. And she's been following me up to send my term sheet, and And for me, you would think, I was an investor, I was a seed investor, and everybody I know is looking for an investor. You would think that I would, jump at it. But I've been thinking about it, and I said, gosh, this makes it very real. This push, being that I'm very informed, I know that this takes you from lifestyle to growth. I know that it takes your numbers from, being like this every month to you have to be going like this every month. And, you would think that I would jump at it, but for some reason I realized I wasn't jumping. And that's when I said, you know what, I think I need to expand my mind. So the first key thing I noticed for entrepreneurship, especially if you want to be the outliers, the growth ones, it starts from your mind. You need to know that if you were brought up here, depending on your family circumstances here, and me just working with so many women, it's like something has always told you can be second best. It's just okay. It's like, so you have to constantly work on your mind to grow. The first key barrier to growth is your mind. Like I have I'm in tech. I know a lot of guys, a lot of guys that when I was sitting on the investor side, I would have put money into them, but something happened and I didn't put money, and I know where they are now. And when I talk to them, the only difference is that for some reason they saw, whenever you're talking to them, it's like they're speaking Greek. They paint this very masterpiece. And for you as a woman, maybe sometimes you just start painting just small watercolor. So you need to, first of all, start training your mind. But it's okay to know where you are, but you have to start training your mind to start painting masterpiece. So until you get that, you get your mind ready, there's a limit to your growth.
Thank you so much. I think the key thing I learned there is a lot of us have to break from our conditioning, because the way we're brought up is you can be great as women. A lot of women are told they can be great, but not great enough to overshadow men. And in as much as we don't know, it's innate, it's so unconscious that you don't know. Even when you're trying to go big, you want to just hold yourself back. And what it just takes, really, just do it. Like, the worst thing that will happen is what? You'll fail, but you're failing forward. And I feel like that's something that we need to learn to keep doing, start doing, and continue doing. So moving on to the next question. What sectors do you think require more women-owned businesses? What sectors do you think are lacking more women-owned businesses?
All sectors. I think all sectors. I think maybe construction for one. So we did a lot of work with construction people. We train people in construction and place them in jobs. We don't see that many women-owned businesses in construction. Tech definitely as well. I talked about our workspace voucher program. We've supported over 100 startups. I think we have like 20 female founders, which is not good enough. Any other? Yeah, so I think those are my two sectors that I'll think about, construction and tech. But one thing I want to add to what you and Ifeoma discussed earlier is something entrepreneurs have to think about is access to market. I think that's key. I think that's very important. And I think sometimes we focus so much on capital that we ignore access to market. And I think that's what collaboration and networking will do for you. I might not be able to fund you, but I can introduce you to your next biggest customer. And even looking at like Africa's Talking, they're in like so many countries in Africa already. I think that's what entrepreneurs here should start striving to be like. And I think lastly, one thing I'll add is sometimes we like to cut corners, and obviously that hurts us. And I'll give you an example. We've supported so many people in the fashion industry, and one of the things that we try to do for them is ensure that they're export ready. But we constantly have to tell them, like, if you don't have all the right raw materials, then you cannot make whatever it is you're doing. You cannot cut corners. If it takes you 10 sheets to do something, if you only have 9, then just don't do it. So a lot of awareness and a lot of capacity building has to go to entrepreneurs to help them understand that, yes, if you do want to go global, there's certain standards that you have to follow. And this is very important.
Thank you. Ruby?
In terms of sectors, I would have to agree. I think absolutely all of them, right? I think more anecdotally, the reason we ended up starting Greenhouse Lab, just the story behind it, is we actually invested in about 20 companies over the last couple of years, and one was run by a woman. One was founded by a female entrepreneur. And we started actually reflecting why this was the case, right? And again, we've looked at all these industries, right? Health and education and all of these things. And it really came down to actually, it also makes a big difference as to who's on the other side of the table, right? So it's not just about the number of female entrepreneurs, because there are actually a lot of female entrepreneurs. But it's also about how many female VCs or investors sit on the other side. How many people are doing loan decisioning on the other side of the table that are also women? And I think that's a really important distinction, because I think there are innately some businesses that women will understand better because it's much more relevant to them, right? I'll give you an example of a beauty service platform. So wouldn't it be nice if, you know, as a woman, you could go online onto your phone and actually book a nail appointment and know exactly what the cost is, what time you can go there, instead of trying to call some guy on the phone 10 times, potentially maybe going and showing up. Maybe he has like 3 people in front of you, you wait an hour and a half, you've missed your next meeting. I mean, it's a whole mess, right? And on top of that, for them, they also don't necessarily have an understanding of their own booking and their flow of customers, right? So there's underutilization in that economy. Now, this is actually a real use case. So it's quite funny because and I hate to throw one of my colleagues under the bus, but we have a male colleague and he's fantastic. He's amazing. However, the first interview that we did with this company and the first conversation we had around due diligence, the first conversation he had, he was like, "No, I'm done. I don't like this company. It's irrelevant. I have my hair guy. I'm good to go. Like, I don't need a marketplace. This wouldn't work in Nigeria," right? And it was quite funny because actually, as you broke it down, he started to see potential in this company, but his almost immediate response was to say no because he couldn't relate, right? And I think that's also a really important. It's a really important factor into creating opportunities and enabling women to be able to have access to these resources, whether it's financial or not. Also matters in terms of who's on the other side of the table to actually enable those people, right? What kinds of networks exist? How do we create communities and networks where actually women who are going through these things, who have scaled businesses across multiple different industries, right? It's not just female-focused industries, but it should be everything. How do we create that environment and platform that women can actually tap into and tap into easily? There shouldn't be a high barrier to enter into a community of female entrepreneurs, right? It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be about who you know and who you're connected to and, you know, how much money they've raised and this sort of like network of small closed I guess, groups. It should really be an open platform that anyone can walk into, anyone can tap into. And also, if we are part of those communities, we almost need to bring those companies along and bring those entrepreneurs along. The more that we find, the more that we need to add to that community. And I think that's really, really important, where it's not a competition. It's not kind of about, you know, again, who you know. It's really about how you're bringing along and everyone for that journey, right?
Thank you. So before we take our last question, I would like to ask everyone to please, if you have questions, please note them because we're about to end the session. For my final question, how have you built and sustained successful collaborations? I mean, the theme of Lagos Startup Week this year is collaboration. How have you built and successfully sustained collaborations and partnerships? All 3 of you, starting from Ifeoma.
So I used to be a very shy person. Well, not really shy, you know. I grew up kind of alone, so maybe I felt like socially awkward, you know, that kind of stuff. But as I go higher in my corporate, as I get older and I'm going higher and I'm doing my own thing, I realize that if you want to be impactful, if you want to get the best, it is very, very, very important that you make connections with people. You collaborate with people. As in, when I mean make connections with people, you know, go out of your way, connect emotionally with people. And a key to is social media. Like I said, my first investor, I got the investor. I chatted somebody on Twitter that was popular, and she looked at my stuff and shared she likes it. And one day she was sitting down talking to a client, and the client said, "Hey, I'm looking for a female. I want to start blah, blah, blah." And she said, "Hi, I just met somebody that did the same thing." And she hooked us up. The same thing with, we still had a conversation with Access Bank, and they reached out via social media. So a very key tool that I've seen is that social media is a tool. So if you're like me, that maybe if you come to a gathering like this, it's like meeting somebody and smiling might be, oh no, what if she doesn't smile back? You can start with social media, put out a very good profile and say, hi, I like what you do. Make it like, very, very focused. But be intentional about making connections, whether with people you meet online, whether with people in your sector, whether with people you anticipate you will need in your next stage. It's very, very, collaboration is very key. It will cut your journey from 10 years to 1 year. So, yeah.
Tosin?
So I'm a big fan of partnerships, and I always say that one of the reasons why Lagos Innovates has been so successful is because of partnerships. And I'll give you a few stories. Even LSETF. We started LSETF in October 2016. In November 2016, we had no track record. We flew to Abuja to meet with the UNDP. And at that meeting, the UNDP committed $1 million to the project. But what that partnership gave us was credibility, because we had no track record. And once UNDP gave us funding and we started that project and we started building our track record, that opened the door to so many other partnerships. Coca-Cola, Ford Foundation, USADF, IBM, Visa, so many of them. And even with Lagos Innovates, a lot of people thought, we were joking. They were like, government has never done this before. And a lot of the hubs were afraid to take our vouchers because they were not sure if I was going to pay them at the end of the month. But because we had some sort of track record with the loan program and the employability program, and because 90% of us came from the private sector, so we had our own, trust us, we're not going to run away, blah, blah, blah. But they did. And now the program has been running for 18 months. We've never missed a payment with the Workspace voucher. We recently signed with Honeywell Group for the talent development program, where we're training people and placing them in jobs. And for me personally, I have gained so many friends in the tech ecosystem that it's been amazing. So partnerships are key for us. It definitely helps us widen our reach. And I spoke about the partnership with Access Bank as well. So where we're bringing in 2 billion, if another company, another partner can bring another 2 billion to widen our reach, why not? So we're all for partnerships.
Ruby?
I think both of those points are absolutely spot on. I think from the context of early stage companies, your ability to scale will depend on how well you can collaborate and how well you can partner. And it's not just partnering with other startups, but also partnering with large corporations, right? Talking about driving customer acquisition from a network effect level, right? From an exponential level, and going to every single customer is not going to be sustainable. So if you want to scale sustainably, it's much easier to lean on some of these corporate partners who already have access to that customer base, and you also then credentialize yourself, as you've mentioned. I think in the context of Greenhouse Lab, for example, we have spent a lot of time trying to build some of these corporate partnerships where, the companies that then come through the lab then have access to some of these people, right? And some of the decision makers at these companies. I think the biggest challenge sometimes is also just getting your foot in the door and finding the right people to connect with. And if you aren't able to necessarily connect directly from a personal perspective, it's much easier to be able to lean on other people's networks to do it, and other company networks to do it, right? And I think, trying to partner with the likes of LSTV, LSCTF, and also, Access and MTN, and, as many types of partners as possible from multiple different industries helps almost from a distribution perspective, right? So how can you almost plug and play into their platform, into their rails, into their technology. It also provides a testing ground, which I think is really important, right? You can't test in a silo. You can't test with just a subset of 50 clients, for example, or 50 customers. You need that mass. You need the 5,000. You need the 10 million or whatever it is, right? And I think also, as you do think about scaling, it's not just about scaling within Nigeria. These use cases that a lot of companies are trying to solve exist across the continent, right? It's not a unique problem necessarily, right? Every person on the continent needs insurance, for example. Every person needs healthcare, for example. So when you're solving a problem in a particular market, being able to lean on some of these corporate partners that are already existing in other markets, again, helps you scale at a much more faster, broader, and also deeper level, right? So if you need to localize your product in Rwanda or in South Africa, you now have the knowledge base and the local knowledge through the corporation to be able to do that. And I think that's a really key factor in terms of determining how sustainable your business is going to be able to survive and how sustainable it's going to scale.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions, please?